spent more than 30 years in the human resources and staffing industry. He's the co-founder of Manpower San Diego. Bill is also a sought-after leader and speaker in the field and a best-selling author in 2 major employment-related categories, both job hunting and vocational guidance. Bill's passion and expertise is in creating and delivering opportunities that enable job seekers and employers to thrive in the ever-changing world of work, which is unprecedented, ever-changing these days, right? Additionally, you're going to be hearing from Congressman Scott Peters, our representative for California's 52nd District, which encompasses the cities of Coronado, as well as much of central San Diego County north of the 8, to include Point Loma Naval Base, MCRD, and Miramar Marine Corps Air Station. He has represented our community since 2013 and is especially focused on the needs of transitioning service members and veterans in need of stable housing, affordable health care, and access to their earned benefits. He actually is one of the founders of the 0800 program, for which I am blessed to be the CEO, to help our transitioning service members thrive when they take off their uniform for the last time. Congressman Peters is ranked the 4th most independent Democrat in Congress by the National Journal, and Scott understands that community problems have bipartisan solutions, and he's never afraid to work across party lines to build consensus and get things done. So let's launch with a video introduction from both gentlemen. I'm going to share my screen for you. Here we go.
When I wrote the original Job One, it was the generic book for everybody. It was during the recession about how to get a job when unemployment was very high. And then an admiral here said, well, what about veterans? You know, Job One is good for generic people, but it's a real different transition when you're going from active military into the private sector. So then we sat down for America's veterans. And the number one reason I wrote it was I would sit down in front of admirals, generals, down to E4s, and the first thing I'd say is, what kind of work are you looking for? What career do you want when you get out of the military? And many were already out and had already been very frustrated. And what they said, which really just broke my heart, was, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I've been a submarine captain for 20 years, and I don't know how to transition in the private sector. So the first exercise that I came up with, that's extensively covered in the book, is dream big. What is your ideal job?
Hey, it's Congressman Scott Peters talking to you today about resumes and cover letters. I mean, as you make your transition from the military into civilian life, these are really important ways that you can explain what the skills are that you've learned in the military that these folks might not understand, why those will help bring experience to the new job and leadership to the new job. So the couple suggestions I'd make on a resume is I really suggest to keep it to 1 page. Even if you are someone who's been with a long career, I really think it's important to distill down your most important things to 1 page. The other thing I would really advise you to do is really try to scoop out all the jargon. So, in the military, there's a lot of acronyms and jargon. Just remember that people who weren't in the military, who you're likely to be talking to, they're not going to understand that. So strip that stuff out. Let them know exactly what you did. And then in the cover letter, which should also be short, again, 1 page if you can, I go with an introduction, I'm asking for this job, a paragraph about what your experience is, a paragraph about what the qualities are that make you a good employee, and then a thank you for considering me, call me back. That's where you might explain kind of to a lay person, a non-military person, the kinds of things you did and why they show discipline, leadership, and competence. And I'll tell you that the good news is that Veterans make great employees because you know how to show up on time, you understand the value of teamwork, you understand what happens when the team doesn't work because you pay the price for that. So I think conveying that in the resume, but also in the cover letter is really important. But make it snappy. You don't got all day, and neither does everyone is searching through resumes. So I would keep it short. But I'm wishing you the best. I'm confident that you'll be able to show these pogues what good experience you have, and you'll land that job and get off to a great career.
All righty. Well, we are very grateful for Congressman Peters' comments and for Phil's introduction. And since Phil does not have a newborn baby in his arms right now, I am guessing that he's in a good position to take over now.
Yeah.
Help us address the topic of the day. So Phil, it's all yours.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome. And I see some familiar faces from 2 weeks ago, so welcome back, and nice to have you. Let me just talk a little bit about the format. There's so much we could talk about, and there's 3 points I want to make, and we'll get to those in a second. And then we're going to go to question and answer, because what's on your mind and what worries you and concerns you and what you're struggling with is really of interest to me and to Stephanie and Ed and how we can help. And we may have some answers, but if not, we'll have maybe a lot of really good advice. The 3 things I want to talk about, and we're going to do interviews today because they're so important. And I tell you, Scott Peters is really knowledgeable on resumes and all those preparation. But let's assume if you've got the interview, you've got a good resume, you've done what Scott talked about, and it's now time for the interview. And the reality is, at an interview, it's your time to lose the deal, okay? On paper, you look good. References look good. Everything looks good. I just want to meet you now. I want to see what kind of person you are. I want to see if you'll fit in with the corporate culture here. And remember, if it's an HR person, my job's on the line, because I'm paid to make good choices to send down to the finance department or the sales department or the international department. I'm saying, here's the 3 people I think are best for this job. And if you let me down during the interview, I and HR look really bad. Okay? So they want you to win. And we'll go into a little more to this. And they want to fill the job, right? I'm in HR. I own the company, or I have the department. I want this job filled. I'm not fighting you, right? It's not like you're interviewing for a job and I don't want to hire anybody. But I got to get the right person, and they got to fit in, and it's got to be somebody I'm comfortable with the exception of some engineer jobs and some IT jobs and programming jobs. I care about your personality as much as your talents. Those other categories, it's kind of a different issue. But that's how those are important. So we're going to be talking about being prepared for the interview before you walk in the door. Number 2, how to sell yourself, right? You're there to subtly sell a product. And guess what the product is? It's not this pen, it's you. And you need to have the talents to do that. And you need to convince me, I keep using me as the big ogre here at HR, or the business owner, why you're the right person for this job. And the 3rd thing is, remember to ask for the job. Let me know you want the job and how to follow up with me on that. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And I tell you, as an author, when you go back and read your own book, you always sort of go like, oh, I hope a year later I'm as pleased with this product as I was a year ago. Well, I got to tell you, I was really happy with it. So that was a sign of relief for me, because I was putting the notes together and go, oh, that's really good, that's really good, that's really important. But it's chapter 8, and really the heart of it is the philosophy, the cute little philosophy about the interview and the thinking behind it, because it's really, really important. Number one, remember, nobody likes, right? Nobody says, oh boy, I get to go through my 40th interview today to try to get a job. Everybody hates it, right? Everybody feels like they're the Inquisition. You know, I joke about in my manpower offices, I always want arms on the interview chairs so that people can grab them and, you know, their knuckles can turn white because the Inquisition's starting. And that is such a mistake, right? Let me get back to where we were. I want to meet a nice person, right? I've tested the paper, they look good. And that's a hard thing to have your resume look good and perfect and all this. And they may have done reference checks already. So how you handle yourself is really important. And one of the things I point out to veterans groups, and by no means do I mean this as a negative, but the reality is the extreme sign of respect for high ranking people is a real downer in the private sector, right? Because an example, I mean, for 20 years, it's ingrained you to person of authority who's making the hiring decision. Yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't ask a question. I only answer questions, right? It's a sign of respect for the admiral or general or colonel that I'm talking to. That's not true in our world. So one message I really want you to take away is we're just people, right? I may have had an experience in business ownership and you've had an experience in your career path, and boy, are they probably very different. But right now, we're just two people having a conversation. But I want you to have the conversation. I want you to ask questions. I even feel like I want you to take control of the interview without being too obvious about it. The reason I say that, either if it's an HR person, they've been interviewing all day, and so they may not have the energy to be all chatty Cathy. Or number two, it's a small business owner, and he's more nervous than you are, right? Because I don't know what to ask. I really need to find somebody that I trust. The last two guys that I hired bombed. I don't know what I'm doing, and you know. And the third one is the department manager. When you get that far, who HR came down to them and said, don't ask age, don't ask marriage, don't ask divorce, don't ask number of kids, don't ask where they live, don't ask what they make, don't ask. It's like, what do I say? So that's the one that typically starts with, so tell me about yourself. Okay, now we'll come back to that. But because that's when amateurs are interviewing, that's what they start with. And unfortunately, there's an amateur's answer to that, and it's such a disconnect. It's unfortunate. So we're walking in the room. Make conversation. When you walk in their office, find something like pictures of their family, or maybe they have a picture of them playing golf, or maybe they have memorabilia on the wall. Something that says, oh, I see you like to play tennis, I don't know, or fish, or I like to play it too. Now I play smash ball and racquetball, and nobody plays that, right? Well, that's a dead end for me. But I tell you, and many of you guys have been to, some of you have been to my offices. We have a wonderful view, and we have, we think, a wonderful art collection. So it's not for lack of topics to even say, oh, what a nice view out of the office, you know, but make conversation. Don't walk in like you're a deaf mute, waiting for them to ask you something, you know, like how many atoms are on the end of a needle? Like, some people ask those questions. It's just like such a stupid thing to do. But be at ease and fake it till you make it. You, in your heart, you may be so nervous because you want this job so bad, it's the perfect one. But you're coming in casually to meet a new friend, to have a conversation, and to sell yourself. Okay? You're going to have notes. I want to make sure I drop into the conversation I was an Eagle Scout. Or I think in Girl Scouts, it's a golden feather, I think. I need to find the answer to that because I don't want to use just Eagle Scout. That is a huge accomplishment. or something like that. I was captain of my football team or captain of my soccer team. Things you want to get in the conversation. And let's go back to the Eagle Scout thing. In the most awkward years of your life, 8 to 17, you started something and you stayed with it the entire time, and you got to the pinnacle of that trip. And only 0.00% of Boy Scouts accomplished it. Now, if I'm sitting here and I'm hiring you to be a project manager or to do reports for me, and you're an Eagle Scout, am I going to have any doubt that you're going to start a project, you're going to focus on the project, and you're going to finish it? So in the military, think of examples like that. We're not all Eagle Scouts, right? But think of examples that show stick-to-itiveness, creativity, things that you're proud that you want to get into the conversation, and write them out. Volunteer work is another good one. I built a school in Guatemala 3 summers in a row. Hint, hint, I didn't go play golf or lay on the beach or backpack through Europe. I volunteered. And that's what I did in my summers during college. Or these are the internships I had during college or during high school or during college these days. So those sort of things set you apart, because what I'm hearing is, you know what? The guy before you was proud of dropping his handicap on golf the last 3 summers between college. And the guy after you, I have no clue what he did on 2 years after college. It's blank. He graduated in 2018 and said, now I'm looking for a job in 2020, right? Am I going to be more impressed with the guy that played golf and probably goofed off because he had nothing to put on there for 2 years, or the guy that volunteered or did internships or job shadowing and really focused his time in a productive way? So when I'm talking to veteran group, think about that in your world of how you used free time with other people, to learn more about foreign cultures, to mentor younger people that were coming up. But I'm looking for another tick that says sharp person that went above and beyond instead of goofing off when they had a chance to do that.
Phil?
Yes.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So many of our military service members have similar experiences, oftentimes, managing hundreds of troops, millions of dollars of equipment, completing advanced courses, especially when they're interviewing with someone who maybe don't have the understanding of the minutia that differentiates one military service member from another. Could you expand on ways they can make that differentiating point, especially if perhaps it's a job that has a security clearance or something that might lend itself to having several military service members applying? So that, how do they stand out as the best?
And Stephanie, the secret clearance, there's some mixed feelings about whether you should put that on your resume or not. Do, because it might be a defense company that is very excited to know that, right? And that may have, I was interviewing him for this. He's got secret clearance. I can use him over here on this contract. So be sure and do that. And I'll tell you, Stephanie has hit on one of the hardest things to do is to differentiate yourself. So that's why I talk about digging in and finding things that are different. If one more wonderful veteran of any age says their strengths are teamwork, logistics, and follow through, dependability. It's like nobody ever says, I'm terrible at logistics, I'm terrible at that, I'm terrible at this. But differentiate yourself, because I don't want 10 different resumes of veterans, and I'm a veteran-friendly company, and I want to reach out to veterans, and they all sell me their strengths are teamwork, leadership, and logistics. Well, that's 10 people. I don't have time to dig and find out, but what makes me different? And that's your homework assignment. And you almost need somebody to pull that out of you, right? Because, oh, I did this and I did this, and that's special. And that's what you need. You need to lead with some conversation that sets you apart from the last three veterans. And don't ever think you're not competing. I mean, you may be in the waiting room for an interview and look up and go, yeah, there's three of us growing our haircuts out in this room. But this is the time to be competitive, right? I want you guys to win that job because you're more prepared. And more prepared means you know about the company, you know about the person you're meeting with, you have done your homework, right? This is before you get into the interview. And people say, well, can I bring a notebook in? Yes, you can bring a notebook, but don't bring a cell phone and a notebook and a big purse and a bottle of water and a pen and look like you're, a homeless person squatting in the reception area or in my office, right? Notebook and a pen. You're not going to make any phone calls during my interview, or take any calls. So I don't think you need that with you. And it's a nervous habit to have your phone with you. But be prepared. Research the company. Know what their mission statements are. Prove that you have done that. So when you're talking to them, say, well, I'm very interested in a new product about the new cell phone that you're selling in South America and something because I'm bilingual in Spanish and I was assigned to Guatemala for 3 years, sir, and I built a church that, paint me a picture of why you're the right person and put the pieces together. I tell people, even open your folder and have like copies of their websites visible, right? That they go, oh, that's our website right there. That's in his folder. He obviously did his homework. Don't be weird, but also LinkedIn and Google who you're interviewing with. So you don't, when they're walking down the hall to get you, which is something I always do okay, I'll tell you the truth. Those people that have all the water and the phone and the something in their lap, and I see when I walk up, if they, water flies and books drop and, okay, it's my little joke and it doesn't happen that often, but anyway. But know the person you're in an interview. So when they're walking down the hall, you can say, hi, Joe. Or if it's a very formal company, hi, Mr. Smith. And they go, no, we go by Joe here. Now, you've also driven by the company and you've looked at the building, you know where to park, you know how early to get there. Don't get there too early, like a half hour early, because it looks like you have no life. Or you put a burden on me to go, they go, your technical appointments here. I go, it's only 9:30. So even though I could say, oh, well, tell them to wait till 10, I've got this on my shoulder. Somebody's out there waiting for me. I feel bad. Maybe I shouldn't take this next phone call and I gotta go get, right? Don't do it. 5, maybe 10 minutes early is fine, right? Not too early, and don't ever be late. Right? If I hear on time is late one more time, and let me tell you, veterans are as late as everybody. I do not buy into that on time is late part. But that's important. So, but don't go too far, right? I mean, in my bio somewhere, I was born in Great Bend, Kansas, right? Completely irrelevant to the job. And somebody sat down and said, oh, so I see you were born in Great Bend, Kansas. I'm like, that's weird. I mean, that was like stalking, right? Going into, oh, you worked at IBM for 3 years. My sister worked there too. That kind of stuff is fine. Or I'd like to learn more about what you did at Qualcomm and the difference between, the hiring, process here and the one at Qualcomm. That's fine. You've done your homework. But don't get weird like, what was it like having a third child? It's like, okay, out of here. You're weird. And when I say you're weird, what's going through my mind is you're sitting across from me. Do I see you sitting in front of my best customer ever? Would I be proud to have you represent me? I don't care if you're just taking notes for the CEO of the company. You're going to meet my best customer. Would I be embarrassed of how you dress, of how you conduct yourself, how you communicate? Because I'm not going to take that chance. Because my customer's going, boy, they hire losers over there. That wet toast person that was in the meet, right? So I'm looking at this and going, would I be confident to send you out to explain a new process or a new procedure to my number one customer? And you got to tell me yes. Because you communicate well. We've had a great conversation. You didn't go, out of the ballpark of reasonableness. I'd like to have lunch with you. And in fact, let's go walk down to the finance department right now, because I want him to meet you. Because he's anxious to get this filled, and I bet he'll stop what he's doing to spend time with you. Bingo. That's what you want to have. So none of the grabbing the thing, none of the quiet asking for them to talk to me, and I can't talk to them. Make conversation. Get your points across. At the end, if they say, is there anything else I should know? Go to your list and say, no, I think we've covered it all. Thank you very much, and I've learned a lot. Quick thing on thank you notes, big believer in handwritten thank you notes. And don't say, thank you, dear Phil. Thank you for meeting with me. It was interesting. Thank you again, Phil, Joe. It's like, you just did more damage, because I'm thinking, if you're communicating with my number one customer, is that the kind of thank you note I'd want? Instead, it was fascinating talking about the new product that's coming out in 2021, and I'm really excited to be a part of that. And as I said, leaving your office, I am so excited. Would be so proud to join your team. I hope I hear from you soon, right? There is no doubt that person wants that job, right? The number of people that leave interviews and go, thank you very much, and walk out, and I go, I interviewed 5 people today. This guy said, I want the job. The other 4 didn't say a word. Who am I going to go to first? And it's a little thing, but it's your attitude, it's your follow through, and it's your telling people, I want this, and what do I have to do? And there's a whole negotiation about getting it. But those are the things during the interview to keep the conversation going. Make your points. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to take notes. If you're taking notes in an interview, it tells me, oh my gosh, I might have said something important or intelligent, right? And they wrote it down. I'm tempted to take their paper and turn it over, and it says, buy milk, bread, and water on the way home tonight, right? Don't forget it, right? I don't know that. But they came in thinking I might say something important enough to write down. Like, get back to me Tuesday at 10 o'clock, right? You walk out and go, oh God, I forgot when I was supposed to get back to him because I was thinking about my next sentence or something. Instead, you write it in. So bring the notes, thank them for the interview, write a thank you note. If it's a high-tech company, an email a few hours later is nice, and then follow up with a handwritten thank you note. And the reason for the thank you note is it jumps out in the mail. Right? My wife goes, when the mail comes to our house, and just stands in front of the recycle going like this, junk, 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 handwritten. It looks like a card from grandma with $5 for my birthday, right? A handwritten note stands out and makes you memorable. And when you're one of 10 people that are logistics, leadership, and teamwork, maybe it's a thank you note. Now, guys, listen up. Patiently write the thank you note. If you're like me and you can't read my writing, not such a good deal. It's a bunch of scribble that only your wife can understand, or you have to go to your secretary and say, what does this say? Which is probably mine. Don't do that. So it's got to be legible, or you get negative points instead of, because this guy's going to write a thank you note to the customer and he can't read it. So it's not a good
So Phil, you
Yes.
have given us a lot of information, a lot of food for thought. I think maybe it would be great if we paused to see if there are any questions about all the details that you've given, so that we could drill down a little bit more deeply if folks have specific questions. Would that be okay?
Stephanie, it's perfect. It's exactly the points I wanted to make, and now bring it on. I love this part.
So you all should be able to unmute yourself if you want to ask a question by just going up in the top right button. But if that's not the case, then you can click the little reaction button at the bottom, which will make a hand go up, and I can unmute you. Anyone with specific questions about, well, what if? And, even a very kind of personal question in terms of your personal circumstances, situation, I think would be beneficial, because in responding, Phil can talk about it specifically as well as generally. So don't hesitate.
And if count, how many of you are getting out in less than 6 months? Do we know that? Because there's a whole different process of.
Don't think we have anyone less than 6 months on the call today.
Okay. Because next week we're going to talk about networking, which is so key to getting that interview. But start that months and months out. Don't start it on terminal leave, because it's way too late and it takes too long for it to kick in.
Right. Liam, did you have a specific question? No, he coughed.
That works too.
Oh, no, I'm good. I don't have a question.
Okay. Well, Phil, how about this? How about, is there an interview that you've done that was memorable in a positive way, in a unique way and it'd be great if it happened to have been a veteran, but not necessarily, that just kind of gives people some ideas about the kind of ways, you gave us some examples, but about the kind of ways that the interviewee was able to connect with you that got to the point that you made, which is, this is about fit. They've already cleared the barriers, of you've got the skills or else you wouldn't be here interviewing, right? This is about building a relationship to see whether you're a good fit in the team. Something maybe that you remember that you're like, wow, that was a guy I didn't think I was going to hire, but boy, after I met him or met her, I was interested in bringing him on.
I sure do, Stephanie. And I have a wonderful team of vice presidents, but the only people I want to interview personally and give the stamp of approval are salespeople, because they're out calling on hundreds of prospects for Manpower. And you and I talked about proud to have them representing me out there. I want to say with that, and I've owned this business 40 years and it's grown huge. My favorite part is sales. I love going out on sales calls and trying to convince, I'm trying to convince Amy to drop whoever she's using now for staffing and use Manpower. Right? And my staff sort of looks at me askew and says, Phil, I'm not sure whether you get more joy out of winning a chunk of business or that you defeated a competitor and took business from them. Now, I'm not going to answer this in front of all of you, but there is joy in both. But the reason I interview salespeople, and this is really to a level true with all jobs, is I want people that bring energy into a room, right? I want to meet that person that just walked in the door. Somehow they just have a aura, charisma, that it's the smile or the way they walked in confidently, that they just look like they're comfortable in their skin and they're comfortable walking into a room full of strangers. And a little tip, and this came to me from a senator from California. Oh, I can't think of her name right now, from many years ago. But she said, I'm an introvert. And when you're a senator for 20 or whatever years she was, you got to campaign a lot. And she says, what I do is before I'm walking into a reception or a auditorium, I just take a minute before the staff opens the door and I hear roaring applause in my head, like the senator's walking in, right? Now, this can be a reception where there's no noise, right? But in her mind, she's walking in, I own this room. Now, she's a senator, so she probably does. But for an introvert, and she was very short, for an introvert, in her mind, you can think about, oh, I don't want to be in here. This is the third reception. I'm really tired, how you would walk in a room versus hearing standing applause in your mind and how you would walk in that room and what the first impression of people that saw you walk in. So there's some piece of that wisdom before you go into an interview, right? And energy is so important, especially in a salesperson. But that's not hyper nervous, that's not ACDD. It's just, I can go on calls with this person. This person makes me feel more energized. This person makes me feel more confident. They say that the more important thing is not how you feel, but how you make people feel that you're around. And we can all think of those people. Those are the people I look for. That like to mentor people, that like to share, but they're energetic and they have a positive attitude. Their cup's not half full. Their cup runneth over till proven otherwise. That's my philosophy, and it drives my wife crazy. But until I see it dribbling over the side or not dribbling, it's all going to go good. So the people I remember are the ones that I walk out going, I'd like to know him better or her better. I can see her working here. Because they dressed for the company. They acted the energy level of the company, right? If you work for a surf magazine, you're applying to be a writer for a surf magazine, don't show up in a suit and tie. And I had one veteran, really, I think this is the guy that prompted me to write the book, literally, who showed up completely in his khakis. And I thought, God, you're just not letting go, are you? Right? I got to see you in my company. I've got to see you in my culture. And we don't have many soldiers walking around the hallways in camo. And I just don't think you're ready to let go and enter the private sector. So those are the things that I think are so important about that interview. And we're going to talk about it in 2 weeks, but the networking is the same thing about, I was so impressed with her when I met her that I'd be glad to share her resume with 10 of my friends, right? Instead of, oh God, what a loser. How do I get out of not sending this on?
Right.
Because it reflects on me.
How about a little experiential learning?
That's a big word for us veteran people, isn't it? Experiential learning.
So Phil mentioned early in the webinar the value of having something about your life that would be an interesting topic to bring up that might be able to get related to the job at hand. So I'm going to jump over to Ed and ask Ed, so off the top of your head, if there was something, is there something that you would feel comfortable sharing about your person, your personality, your life, that you think could reflect what a good employee you might be? What would that be?
Careful, but now she's calling on people unsolicited. Ouch.
Everybody else is coming up next, so.
Geez, yeah. I tell you, Stephanie, you're tough. Come on, Edward.
Well, something that I find a lot in my military experience is being an Army veteran in a Navy town. So, which to me, respective of everybody.
Pity the Air Force. I live in San Diego. Pity the Air Force people, right?
Yeah.
They don't even.
So it's definitely something that I find myself sharing with other fellow service members, as it's we're all in the service together or have been, but the Army may be a little bit different, but that doesn't make me any different. We're still part of this collective group that can work with one another. So I often make it a point to mention, as in now as an example, that I am an Army veteran.
So, well, I think that's great, because being able to talk about the fact that, as you said, you're an Army veteran in a Navy town, which is very similar to coming into maybe a company where they might want to be expanding into a more diverse client base. Right. And you're comfortable going and basically being that bird of a different feather. And being able to attract, bringing that in. That was a great response. Matt Ovios, what would be the thing that you might bring up in an interview about your person or your personality or your passions that might reflect well on you being a good employee?
All right, not my use of technology. So I think I would say, my military experience has allowed me to move around a lot, and that coincides with my curiosity, and to be able to do something new. Our tradition is moving to new positions every couple of years, but that's going in, igniting a new passion, a new experiences, and running with it. And I enjoy that in life, moving to new places, meeting new people, and I've enjoyed that professionally, and I think I've been good at it.
Matthew, let me jump on that, but I don't know if she's on your screen, but I want to introduce Jenny Ellis, who's in my screen, is in the upper left-hand corner. She has worked fearlessly and flawlessly on this process of these veterans. So Jenny, nice to see you again. We're in the same Rotary group, and we hardly get to see each other anymore. So nice to see you there. Matt, that would be a really good answer if it's a company that has like an international division.
Sure.
And they're, IBM supposedly used to stand for I've been moved. Right? That would fit in perfectly if you're working for a company that does tend to move people every 2 or 3 or 4 years, because you fit in perfectly, right? But if it's a company that says, hey, we're headquartered here, we're only here, so you're not going to be happy here, because in 2 years, you're going to be here. In 5 years, you're going to be here. So if you tell me one of your interests is moving international or moving around, and you're so good at it, they'll ding you on that. Because one of our worst fears in HR is I hired somebody and they left after 6 months or after a year because the job wasn't what I explained it to be, or they tried to wow me that they were tired of moving, let's say, and I want to settle down and stay in one city, and that whole thing. And then 6 months into it, they get the roaming mood. So those are the sort of things to watch, that we don't fall into that.
But I think that angle you started with, Matt, about your natural curiosity, and that you are a naturally curious person, and that moving a lot fed that curiosity in the military, and being with an organization that has a lot of innovation and is exploring different opportunities, that curiosity and that's what drives you would be a great angle. Don't you think, Phil?
Yeah, and the old phrase, my mind's like a sponge. I love to learn new things all the time. I love new challenges. I love projects that I can take from beginning to end. And us military people, we're dependable. You can sort of joke about we're dependable on projects, and that's one of the things we're known for. But I'm one of these people that wants to learn this job, and then I want to stay in the company, and if there's an opportunity in marketing that I can add value, I want to move there. And because nowadays we're not hiring people to go into the finance department and retire 30 years later in that job, right? I'm going to use Matt's skills in the job I hire him for as long as I need him in that job, and his skills stay up to date for what that job needs. If I say, man, I'd like you to go to this 2-week technology training session. No, I don't like technology, or I don't like to travel, or that's not of interest to me. Ooh. Or we'd like to promote you because no, I don't want a promotion. I just like what I'm doing in this job. Ouch. You're going to get real stale, and you're not going to be needed within a matter of months, and you're going to be the first to let go. Versus, I want to stay up to date. Boss, any new software I should, what do you see coming down 6 months for a year that I can be prepared? What do I learn? What do I learn? Can I job shadow marketing when they do a sales presentation? Because I want to learn how they do that, because it might make me better at this. And say, I'm that kind of person. I want to understand what finance does. I want to understand what marketing does. I want to go on sales calls, because I think the more rounded I am, the better employee I am for this position. But I also want this company to train me and tee me up to move on. I've got ambition, just like you do, as now senior VP of this company, to move up. And I hope you see that in me. And whoa, okay, that sounds great.
Phil, I'd love you to
The energy you put into that conversation too.
I'd love you to touch on, Phil, exactly kind of where you were going with this, which is the interview is a two-way process. You're not just being interviewed by the company, but you're actually making sure that they're a good fit for you. And I think sometimes we forget that because, we're looking for that next opportunity, especially when you're transitioning out of the military. And it's like, I got to land this job. I got to have some stability. I have to, get my plan in order. But it's critical, right? That you are asking the probing questions to make sure that this fit is good for you as well. And how do you do that without being offensive, but yet, making sure that they realize that it's just as important to you that this is a good fit as it is to them.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of playing hard to get, right? So let's go to the opposite extreme, because I talk to a lot of people that, Bill, my mortgage is due in 2 weeks and I don't have it. Like, this isn't like, oh, I'd like to get the ideal job on the face of the earth sort of thing, and let's go. I need cash flow, right? My wife's furloughed. I'm coming out. So let's understand that there are jobs I need right away. I'm in the temporary help business, right? There are 6 months, 3 months jobs that we can get you into to take that pressure off of you. Because you don't want to sit in an interview and they go, well, the salary range was, 75 to 100, but we've made it 69. Okay, I'll take it. The job is now working down at San Ysidro on the border in a Quonset hut. I'll take it. It's like, what? Are you that desperate? Versus, well, how long would it be down there at that assignment? Because the commute is a little long. Oh, no, it's just for 2 weeks training. Oh, okay, that's not a problem, right? If the job assignment is down there in a Quonset hut okay, maybe this job's not right for, and if there is a time in the middle of the interview says, I don't think this is right for me, cut it off. You're not obligated to spend an hour, nor are they. So there's that end of it. And then there's the other end that says, this is really, really interests me, and this company really interests me. But for me to succeed in a company, my style, I need a right? I need, starting to sound like a millennial now, but I like working in teams. I don't like everybody going into their office, closing their door, and coming out at 5 o'clock. What's the work environment here? Because if you want me to just go, this is my version of hell. I did a coaching, this is luckily many years ago, and it was librarians, and her ideal job was going into a cubicle with very little light, no music, nobody talked to her, nobody interrupted her, and I just focus on my research, all alone, me and the screen. Her name was Vivian. And I said, Vivian, you have just described my version of hell.